Hello, everyone, and welcome to an edition of Brown Box. I'm your co-host Ryan Harsch.
And I'm Chris LeRoy. And the concept behind Brown Box is that one of us will bring a piece of music that we really like that we want to share with the other person, and then we pull it out of a brown box.
Pretty basic, right?
Yeah, it's pretty solid.
So this is my selection this week. So this was timely because the head musician and songwriter in this band passed away recently. It's also one of my. It's got to be my top 5 favorite record of all time. I love this album. And so let's pull this out, and we have Television. The band Television. It's their debut album from the year I was born, 1977.
Wow.
Marquee Moon.
There's Tom Verlaine right there.
That's him. Yeah, and this is amazing. A little trivia on this guy here because I'm reading Richard Lloyd's book. He's the other guitarist in the band. This guy here is orange because I guess all he was doing during that recording was eating a lot of carrots, and he contracted some kind of disease that made him turn orange. So that's why I've always wondered, looking at him, he does because the colors on this cover are just kind of like saturated, or they look different. But it's 4 very unassuming guys who more or less invented something, and they were onto something that indirectly influenced a lot of things that came after it. So they were one of the first bands to play, rock band to play at CBGB's. They were on the forefront of that whole New York scene. They made just a couple albums and they disbanded, and then they reformed again in the 90s, for a little bit. But it's this record that everyone points to in terms of the songs, the production. It's just a perfect sounding record to me. 8 songs, but it's each one is very powerful. What do you think of this?
Oh,
What do you know about this?
Well, it's totally influential. In 1977, you were being born. I was
Yes.
just starting up the Dangers.
Uh-huh.
It was about a year out
Yeah.
before we started that band, but I was writing songs with the idea that maybe I'm gonna do a band.
Mm-hmm.
And the thing about Tom Verlaine, or the sound of this music, was very helpful to me, as not just as a songwriter, but as a musician. Because growing up on my block in Colton, we'd have guys like Stan Joyce who could play. They try to play fast. They knew like
Virtuoso.
one Hendrix lick or something. So everyone said, "Well, that's the best guitarist in town." So everything equated guitar playing with speed.
Yeah.
And there was something when I first heard any of this music, either from this or The Adventure, it's this precise, crystalline, pure sound. It's the notes and the quality of the playing and the musicianships that just play stuff just perfectly,
Right.
in a way that it opened up really what music was going to become.
They were a little punk, but they brought in prog stuff, jam, so they were all the stuff the punks hated.
Right.
They did that too, so they were fans of prog, but they were also fans of the Grateful Dead, so in that reflected in their music. The title track is 10 minutes long. And it's definitely a jam song, but it's very orchestrated. It's got different parts. And the guitar work on this album too is it's phenomenal.
The sound and the precision and the catchiness.
Yeah.
If he has a riff,
Yeah.
if there's a riff from Tom Verlaine,
Yeah.
it's going to be one of the best riffs ever done.
Absolutely.
And it'll just sink into it's like a dart.
Right. Yeah.
I know that Lou Reed later on, in some of his solo material moving forward, he sounded just a lot like Television.
A little bit, yeah.
Where it was just sonically, I'm going to have these kind of solid songs.
Yeah.
And it still sounded like Lou Reed, but the early Lou Reed is his Walk on the Wild song.
Right.
The later Lou Reed seemed like he's steeped in this.
Yeah, he's hearing a lot of this stuff, and you have what makes this work too. Back to the guitar thing. Well, you have the rhythm section is just amazing. I like the drummer and the bass is so clear on these cuts.
Right.
But you have 2 guitar players who they're not like those the dual lead type guitar player. You can totally tell the difference so Tom Verlaine played very much like he has these very angular different sounding style that was very much like a free jazz musician. And then Richard Lloyd was a little more of a traditional rock player. But they trade off melody, they trade off hooks, they trade off lead. Sometimes you couldn't tell who was who, but it was all meshed, like you said, meshed together so well that you have songs that when this came out, it wasn't even a hit record, and now people point to this as one of the best things ever made. So it's one of those records, right? That they don't. It's not going to achieve instant success. In their time, they rehearsed for this album for almost a year. And then they went and recorded this within, a couple weeks. And then they broke up a couple years later.
We didn't just have a rhythm guitarist and a soloist. Johnny Hickman was a great soloist. He could play all sorts of things. But we liked all these other bands. So it kind of opened up the door a little bit for me. Electric, even though I was such a kind of a hack at it in a certain way, is that I'd find these certain notes that would fit in to the big picture.
I can't really remember the first time I heard it. I was in my 20s at some point, but someone put it on and I was like, what is this? Like that's one of those things where it kind of stops for you. The whole first side is just, it just goes. And then, it's the second side that people forget about, but there's a song on their Guiding Light I just think is amazing. And it's just, like stuff that it's a jet. I forgot it was on here almost, like you hear that. Oh yeah, that's just, so it's, every time you listen to it, it's like you find little things that kind of creep out. They definitely were eyed by their first demos were produced by Eno, I guess. So Brian Eno, produced their demos. You hear those, this sounds completely different than what you're hearing on this. This is way more polished. They brought in Andy Johns to produce with them. Apparently, from what I'm reading, he was having a little alcohol drug problem at the time, so he'd be passed out in the control room a lot. So they would just be recording, and this guy would be passed out. And he'd wake up and they're like, "Did we get it? Yeah, we got the tape." Something interesting too, that when they heard the band The Cars, Verlaine basically said, "Well, we're done," because that's a commercial version of television, which an argument can be made for that. But
Let's Go.
Yep.
One of the best pop songs ever recorded. And again, there's just the sound of that guitar, what he puts in there, the little descending notes and such. There's a precision of something that that Rick Ocasek, what was going down.
Absolutely.
That there was a simplicity and a complexity that sat side by side in this music, and it reverberates today. I mean, it's like Chris from Eyelids write about Tom Verlaine, and she goes, we wouldn't be anywhere without this band or without Tom.
We recommend this to anyone who loves music. So more or less. But that's our edition of Brown Box. We'll be back with some others of our favorite records that we pull off the shelf. Again, I'm Ryan Harsch.
And I'm Chris LeRoy.
Thank you for joining us.